Did you put the nail in the coffin? I did. The Ducks were dead. But a little bit of hope as we join everyone for our nightly wrap-up show during Bowl Week here at the Voice of College Football. This is what we do. We wrap up the day in college football bowl season, and here we are on a Wednesday night with all of you, and the day began a long, long time ago with Maryland taking on Virginia Tech, and also our Oklahoma show at 12:30 Eastern Time. Oregon has just gotten a touchdown on the board, 47-32, so they're within 2 scores. Almost 7 minutes left in the game. It's doable. It's possible if they could possibly get a stop. All right, welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football. And following a triple header, which was supposed to be a quadruple header of college football, today we talk to all of you. And we are pleased and blessed to do so. Before we get to the frivolity of college football, just want to remind everyone how precious life is. I received some awful news today. Actually, I received the awful news a couple days ago. So it was a couple days ago I received the awful news, but reminded of it by some posts on Facebook tonight. So life is precious. Certainly love and embrace and enjoy and cherish and support those people that are near and dear to you throughout your life, because you never know when they will be gone. All right, to happier times. And if you only saw one play today, if you only saw, maybe some of you might have another play for me, but one play during bowl season thus far, Mario Goodrich twice in preserving Clemson's win against Iowa State. The first one was that crazy batted interception. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. Brock Purdy, poor Brock Purdy today. Brock Purdy, this was not his day, and it should have been his day as the outgoing senior quarterback for Iowa State, who has led the Cyclones to more wins than any quarterback in the history of the school. Brock Purdy. But in trailing by 1 score, I believe in the second quarter, might have been third quarter, third quarter, Brock Purdy throws a ball out to his left. He gets batted up in the air, and he, with the ball coming right back at him, I believe was attempting to just knock the ball like a volleyball player, to spike the ball to the ground, because he was determining in that split second that I can't really catch it and go anywhere, because a quarterback can do that. A passer of the football can throw the ball as long as he threw a forward pass. If it's batted back at him, you can catch your own pass and then advance the ball by running. You can't throw it again. A la the Super Bowl trivia question out here. I will leave it for anyone to answer. What quarterback threw a pass in the Super Bowl, had it batted back at him, and tried to throw it again and threw like a 40-yard completion down the field, but it was, of course, called back because he had thrown 2 passes in one play. So anyway, Brock Purdy didn't want to do that. So instead of really getting a handle on the ball and slamming it to the ground, he just kind of batted it across the net. Mario Goodrich picked it off and ran it back for a pick 6. And then later in the game, in one of the strangest plays, considering the circumstance, you're going to see Brock Purdy and Iowa State were down. Let's see, the final score was 20-13. I knew it was a 1-score game, 20-13. So touchdown ties the game. A 2-point conversion wins the game. Iowa State's got the ball. They got plenty of time. They've got enough time to drive it in, try to tie or win the game. Brock Purdy on 4th and however many yards advanced the ball on a scramble past the first down line, but the ball was knocked out of his hands, and in retrieving the ball, he should have tried to pick it up. But again, to be critical of these guys in the moment is ridiculous, because he lost track of where he was on the field, and obviously he knows enough about football to know if he was watching it, what he should have done was try to pick the ball up, Not that most likely it would have made any difference because he was 4 or 5 yards behind the sticks at that point, and he just jumped on the football. And, of course, the play was dead right there, and they turned the ball over on downs, game over. So you got to check out those two plays. As Clemson defeats Iowa State in the Cheez-It Bowl. The Cheez-It Bowl. Do people like Cheez-Its? I do not want to put off a potential sponsor. So you find folks at Cheez-Its and whatever company it is that makes Cheez-Its. It's not Kellogg's. I don't know what brand name that is that produces Cheez-Its, what the parent company is. But I'm sure you've got a quality product. I'm just not a big Cheez-Its guy. I'm more in the sugar category, unfortunately, which I'm going to be halting here soon. But anyway, the Cheez-It Bowl goes to Clemson 20-13, and the Tigers finished the season after starting 2-2 at 10-3. I would argue that Clemson was the best team in the ACC this year. Did not win the ACC championship. That went to Pitt, and Pitt actually did play Clemson head-to-head, which makes me feel better about Pitt's ACC championship, that they not only won the lesser of the two divisions, but then they won the ACC championship game after defeating Clemson in the regular season by 10 points. So Pitt, fair and square, won the ACC championship, and of course will tee it up against Michigan State in the Peach Bowl tomorrow night. But I believe Clemson was still, even in a down year, the best team in the ACC. They finished off at 10-3, won a late season game against Wake Forest in dominant fashion. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. You can read down at the bottom of the screen that we are looking for a sponsor. We've got one that we will talk about a little bit later. Of course, it's our friends over at Get Business Credit. Get Business Credit, and we'll talk about our buddy Josh and the services they have there at Get Business Credit. But we're always looking for sponsors for our various team live streams. Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Miami, Florida State, West Virginia now added. Did I miss anyone? I don't believe so. And then the various channels we have and shows. So whatever fits your needs, certainly contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail about sponsoring this particular show or the main channel or one of the team channels or one of the team live streams. So Clemson wins again, 10-3. And for those Clemson critics, detractors, haters that believe that the program is in trouble, it's not. Is Clemson going to maintain the success that the program has had over the past 7 or 8 years? I don't believe so. I don't think it's possible. I made a comment on our Miami show tonight in response to some type of question or comment that Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State have been the most successful programs. Alabama certainly in the number one position over the past roughly 10 years. So if we roughly take the last 10 years, those are the three programs that by far have the best winning percentage, which Oklahoma, which we're seeing tonight, let's see, they're driving. They're up 47-32. Now we've got less than 5 minutes left in the game, and Oregon just can't stop the Sooners, and it's understandable. Depleted defense, just really don't have any linebackers, in particular scholarship linebackers to speak of. Anyway, those three programs are winning at a better than 90% clip. That's just not sustainable long term. I mean, long term, for decades. Best winning percentage of all time, Alabama. Ohio State virtually tied. It's within fractions of a winning percentage at 73%, 731. So you cannot maintain a 90% plus winning percentage. So I do not expect Dabo Swinney to continue at that pace. But the Clemson football program, upon further notice, is still the class of the ACC and still the best program by a wide margin, by a considerable margin. All right. Elsewhere today, congratulations to the Maryland Terps and the Big Ten in going 2-0. The Terps blasted Virginia Tech 54-10. Talia Tagovailoa had a decent day. He hit on some long touchdown passes. The Maryland defense, surprisingly, was stellar. Now, consider that Virginia Tech's quarterback Braxton Burmeister, for some unknown reason to me, decided to transfer, wanted to play in the bowl game. Virginia Tech's coaching staff would not allow him to play in the bowl game. Smart move. Get work and reps for the players that are going to be back in 2022. So Braxton Burmeister was not there for Virginia Tech. The Texas A&M transfer Blumrick was the starting quarterback for Virginia Tech. He was ambushed all day. Maryland just finished off a season that was 6-6, and this is a good thing for a program in Maryland's place. Marginal program trying to increase its status in the Big Ten. Only won 2 games in the Big Ten, let's see, this year. Yes, 2-6 in the Big Ten, 6-6. So one of those smoke and mirrors kind of bowl seasons. You go 2-6 in the conference against the quality competition, and then for Maryland, they won 1 non-conference game that was considerable against West Virginia. Decent opponent, and won that game. Beat 3 cream puffs, or 2 other cream puffs. So they went 3-6. My apologies. 9 games in a Big Ten conference schedule. 3-6 for Maryland in the Big Ten. So they must have beaten Rutgers, Indiana, and Illinois, I believe, off the top of my head. And then win this bowl game over Virginia Tech 54-10 in the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. And Virginia Tech, about the best thing the Hokies did today was slap the Yankees logo in the Virginia Tech purple and orange on the side of their helmets. Just something different, something unique, something interesting. And it's fun for a few minutes to see a football game played in a baseball stadium and to see how they configure the football field within the baseball dimensions. And then tonight, again, unless Oregon's able to score twice in the final 5 minutes and stop Oklahoma and pull off an amazing comeback, Oklahoma has completely dominated this game. It's gotten a little ragged in the second half, teams basically trading scores, but Oklahoma had 8 straight possessions of scoring the ball. 2 field goals, 6 touchdowns in 8 possessions. If you look at Oklahoma's drive chart from the first quarter into the fourth quarter, it's a thing of beauty. 8 consecutive possessions, basically going 75 yards or so every possession in anywhere from 5 to 12 plays. Touchdown, 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 touchdown. Caleb Williams setting himself up for a nice 2022. We could be mean to Caleb, and we could set him up for a Heisman failure like Spencer Rattler at this time last year, when people were, of course, projecting Spencer Rattler to win the Heisman in 21. Let's leave it alone right now. Caleb Williams had a nice season. I've got to guess, did not see him throw an interception tonight. He's got to have 3 or 4 touchdown passes. So he came into the game with 18 touchdowns and 4 picks. So he has completed a tremendous freshman campaign for the Sooners, who will finish their season, barring a miracle, at 11-2, should place them fringe top 10 in the country. Oregon will finish at 10-4. And really, outside of the Ohio State game, it was not a good season for Oregon. It just turns into a completely different program now in 2022, with Mario Cristobal now in Miami with much of his coaching staff. And we will find out more at the conclusion of this game about who is heading to Miami from Oregon. Because as we talked about during our Miami live show tonight with Cam Underwood, the Miami coaching staff is basically undercover. There are probably some deals that have been made, some agreements, but officially there is no coaching staff in Miami, but they're doing work right now, and that will soon to be announced, because Mario Cristobal bringing some of his coaches from Oregon to Miami. And now, as of 3:41 left on the clock, it will be Dan Lanning's program in Eugene, Oregon. Tomorrow, we've got quite the lineup. North Carolina. When I've got a helmet to match, I've got to point that out. North Carolina taking on South Carolina to start the day at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. We've got the Big Ten and the SEC going at it. And that will certainly be something that, if we continue to get results that do not make it clear as to which is the best conference in college football, we will settle that at the end of the season. And regardless, I'm going to process, as I do each and every offseason, I will process all the results of all the non-conference games, and we will declare best conference, number 2, number 3, 4, and 5. And shoot, who knows? If the Pac-12 is in trouble at number 5, maybe we should compare the Pac-12 against the American Conference and others, and we probably should, especially the American Conference. Mountain West, maybe, against the Pac-12, and deliver our conference rankings. At the end of the season, don't want to jump too far ahead of myself because we've got playoffs this week and we got bowl games to enjoy, but I will unveil not just my top 25 that actually makes sense, but the top 1 through 130. We will rank all 130 FBS teams once the season is complete. We will take your calls tonight. I have not hooked up the phone lines. I guess the reason I do that is, number 1, to save a few pennies, and number 2, because I enjoy not having an earpiece in. I really enjoy that. And so the longer I can just sit up here and talk without the earpiece in, then the more I enjoy that. But we've gotten to the point in the show which we're going to take some calls from you. So we will hook up the phone lines. So you're going to have to listen to the annoying piano music. But before I do that, why don't I take a quick glance at any comments in here that might be worth noting. See if we've got any super chats that came in. Keep in mind, you can contribute here to the Voice of College Football. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV, and we appreciate that. Understand that I've noted this in previous seasons, and it's coming to fruition again this year. I pick the bowl games better once the Power 5 starts playing. If you watch us on a regular basis, you know that I love the group of 5. I just don't have time to keep track of the group of 5 to be some kind of a group of 5 expert. I am not. I see a little bit on Thursday, a little bit on Friday. I do not have time to watch any group of 5 football on Saturday. I'm watching the Power 5. That's all there is to it. And therefore, who's playing at the beginning of bowl season? The group of 5. What happens to my bowl record early in the postseason? It's pretty bad. Then starting last night, Minnesota, West Virginia, the 3 games today. I had a clean sweep today, 3 for 3 against the spread, 3 for 3 on the money line as well. So in the games involving Power 5 teams, I believe the record is 6-1 against the spread. 6-1 against the spread. So please check out my picks on Patreon. I update them now that we've got games every day. I update them every day, and you can check out my predictions as well as 20 media members. We're probably down to about 12 media members on Patreon. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, and we've got some exciting things in store for everyone once we hit the off season. So I know there will be no more games to predict in about 10 days, but past that, we have some exciting things in store on Patreon. All right, nothing in the live chat, so let's go to the phones. Pardon me for just a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. As a side note, just a little trivia. In addition to my Super Bowl trivia about what quarterback threw 2 passes and completed 1, but it was illegal, the other trivia question I have for you is that, Bob Stoops is one of 3 coaches to win 150 games in his first 10 seasons. No, that wouldn't make any sense. First 15 seasons, 150 wins. 3 coaches have done it. Bob Stoops is one of them, coaching in. He's way past 150 wins. He's about 40 past that. He won his 191st game tonight as they wrap it up 47-32 over Oregon. So we've got 2 other coaches who have won, as it's quite annoying to try to talk listening to this awful music. We have 3 coaches in the history of college football that have won at least 150 games in their first 15 seasons, which means 10 per season at least. One hint would be just consider how many games are played now versus how many games were played decades ago. So a lot of these records are eclipsed because they just play more football now. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Let me just make sure we're all set. And let's take our first call of the night here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Well, let's give it up for Big Game Bob and a big victory, huh, Mark Rogers?
Yes, relatively speaking, if that's what you want to call it, sure.
Was that always supposed to be a divisive nickname? I always thought that wasn't supposed to be like an enduring nickname for him, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, depending on who named him that, I think that there are some nicknames out there that they just tag on people just because it rolls off the tongue, but it doesn't have necessarily anything to do with reality. It's just Big Game Bob. Like if his name was Mike, nobody would call him Big Game Mike. But you might be right. It might be a divisive nickname. He's lost national championship games. So we're going to taunt him or be critical of his achievements, of which I, of course, would push back on. But he's had a distinguished career and is one of the greats.
Well, I always felt it was interesting. A friend of mine was an Oklahoma fan. We used to talk about it, how like the Tressel years and the Stoops years, because Tressel won that national title early on and then lost those back-to-back title games. And Stoops won that national title and then lost, 3 straight national title games after that.
Yeah.
Or the next 3 national title games he was in.
Yep.
So, although I don't think that, is it me or did Stoops get the kind of the same type of criticism that Tressel did after Tressel lost those championship games?
Oh, I think he's taken a lot of criticism.
Okay. I was just trying to think back of what the narrative was at that time. I know you were covering college football at that time, and I was just wondering if he got as much criticism for that. But
there have been many times that I've corrected people on Jim Tressel's record in BCS games because they remember the Florida game and the LSU game. And actually, Jim Tressel has a winning record in BCS bowl games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I actually thought Tressel closed pretty good with 2 really good bowl wins, winning that Rose Bowl over Oregon and then that Sugar Bowl over Arkansas, which he should still get credit for, by the way.
Yes, he should. So, it's silly to take away wins and bowl appearances and championships and all of that from these teams.
Yeah, that's always been a pet peeve of mine as well. Hey, I did want to discuss the opt-out situations. I know you were talking about that on Buckeye Talk. I had put a comment in the comment section during the comments during the Buckeye Talk today. All I can remember during the Urban Meyer years is the only opt-out player I can remember was Denzel Ward in the Cotton Bowl that year against USC, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm almost positive that's it.
Because if you think about it, we didn't play for the national championship in 2013. We weren't in the playoff in 2015. And there could have been a ton of players that could have opted out in 2015 on that team and not played that Fiesta Bowl. So I don't know. Is it just me, or is that, I mean, everybody says this is all about the playoff era and not playing for a national championship. Do you find that to be the case? Or, I mean, have we changed that much in 5 years here? Because we had a playoff 5 years ago.
No, I think you're right. I think that the playoff has something to do with it. I think it has a lot to do with it, but it's taken the players maybe a few years for it to register. And of course, players, just like the rest of us in society, typically have to be shown something by somebody else before we latch onto it. So the first two players that I remember opting out, and I'm not stating this as fact by any stretch because it's not something that I keep track of or remember, but was Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette opting out,
right,
which must have been like 2016, 2017, 16 or 17.
No, that was the 15 season, I think, Mark, because remember, McCaffrey should have won the Heisman in 15, I think. That was when he lost, I think, wasn't that a close vote with Derrick Henry that year?
Yeah, but he played in the Rose Bowl.
Oh, that's right. He did, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was the next season.
Was it the next season? Okay. Maybe you're right.
They played in the Sun Bowl the next year, and I don't think he played. I'll have to double check.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, but it was just something that I found interesting because you think about that 15 team, Zeke and Boza and those guys, they all could have opted out. They didn't have to play in that game against Notre Dame in the Fiesta. And, I know these people have cited the Jalen Smith example in that bowl, of him getting hurt. But you notice that the Jalen Smith example is the only example they're giving. They're not giving like 10 different examples of a guy tearing an ACL or ripping up a leg or doing something like that. I mean, the Jalen Smith example is the one example. So, I mean, to say that that's like happening all the time where these guys are, playing the bowl game and getting hurt and ruining draft status, like that's happening on a regular basis. It's not happening on a regular basis. So, and I'm not saying that these players don't have a right to do it. Everybody's going to say, well, they have a right to do it. Of course they have a right to do it. I get it. I understand that. But it's just interesting how in a matter of only a few years and with certain teams, this has changed. That's just my overall thought. I didn't mean to rant there, but just, if you want to add to that, Mark.
Well, I've got to admit that my viewpoint has slightly changed just in the last couple of days. So I don't really think any differently about what their rights are and don't feel that them to be horrible people or anything like that, or that they don't have the right to make the decisions for themselves. My mind has not changed that way. I do feel a little bit more strongly that they made a commitment to play for a team and receive a scholarship and play a season and finish it out. And this is just as much a part of the season as any other portion of the season. I'm not understanding whatever tag people put on bowl games as exhibitions or meaningless games. I don't get that. I would certainly consider many of these games to be more meaningful than Ohio State playing Akron in September and the litany of games like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to put a ton of people in those stands and they're going to keep score. Last time I checked, that gives it some meaning, I would think. As they say, as long as they're keeping score, the game's got meaning, one would say. But, it's just, I guess it's just interesting the way that, things have changed again over just a short period of time. I will say from an Ohio State perspective, I don't know, Mark, and maybe the playoffs have dampened things, but and also the opt-outs haven't necessarily helped. But I just don't, from an Ohio State perspective, am as fired up about this game. And maybe a lot of that has to do with the playoffs. A lot of that has to do also with the way we played in our last game, of course. I mean, that sours, a lot of seasons. So I just, as far as my feelings about this game and just being excited about it, I guess the only thing would be is seeing kind of the younger players going forward for Ohio State. But it just, I don't know. Being Pasadena, maybe I should be a little bit more excited about it, huh?
Well, we feel what we feel. We can't change or control that. I will ask you this. Do you think any of it has to do with the opponent?
Yeah, maybe that's part of it. Obviously, like when we played in some of those other bowl games, I like when we missed the playoffs during the Urban years. I guess you played with Notre Dame and USC those years, and those were big brands. I think we had a long losing streak against USC, so it was nice to end that losing streak against them in that Cotton Bowl. And obviously the game against Washington, I think the only reason that was made exciting was that was Urban's last game. It was kind of, a big kind of to-do at the time.
Yeah, and that's not a knock against Utah as a football team. It has less to do with them, the current team, than it does just, historically, it's not going to, unless things change dramatically on the college football landscape, it's not a game that people are going to look back on, regardless of how well it's played or what a great game it is 20 years from now, and look at it and see Ohio State and Utah and look at it in the same light as Ohio State and USC in the Rose Bowl.
Right. I think the name brand power, gives also some of these games some luster. That's what I was saying about, the Fiesta Bowl in 15 and then that Cotton Bowl in 17. Well, after the 15, 17 seasons, I should say. I did want to give some thoughts. I heard your conversation with one of the Georgia guys evaluating the Michigan Georgia game again, and I did find it interesting. He kind of mentioned the talent disparity between the two teams as far as like with the recruiting rankings and everything, and the number of 5-stars on Georgia as compared to the 5-stars on Michigan.
Yeah,
and I was thinking, I think that there are just basically three reasons that a lot of people think this game is going to be close, and I think it's going to be a close game. Is number one, first of all, stylistically, I think these two teams are very similar. They basically want to play in the trenches. They want to run the football. Both teams are strong on defense. Both teams have what we call our game manager type quarterbacks. And even when Georgia is playing at a high level, they kind of bludgeon people by like 27-7 scores, 27-3 scores. They're not putting, 50, 60 points on the board. So, I think stylistically, I think both teams are similar that way. I think the other reason a lot of people think this game's going to be close is for the obvious reason, the way both teams are coming into the game. Obviously the way Georgia ended it in the SEC title game and kind of the high that Michigan's coming into the game on. And then I think the other reason that a lot of people think this game's going to be close is for the obvious doubts that people have about Georgia's quarterback situation with Stetson Bennett.
Sure.
Is that your read on it too?
Well, the first thing, when it comes to the conversations I have with various media people, whatever you want to call them, YouTube content creators, is that a lot of those segments receive criticism, and that's what they're there for. That's fine. But I just want people to understand what they're there for. So I'm not going to challenge every statement that's made out of somebody's mouth. I will challenge inaccurate information or illogical thought to a certain extent. But in that particular conversation, it was very obvious that we had a Georgia individual on, a Georgia fan. He's a YouTube guy loves Georgia, and
Yeah.
his exposure to Michigan football is extremely limited. And, he brought his facts, but his facts, I thought, needed to be placed into context on a few different
Sure.
occasions. So he was leaning very heavily on the point that Georgia's got the most talented roster in the country and that Michigan does not. And if you look at the total team talent rankings on 247 Sports, Michigan has the 15th most talented team in the country, and that's a pretty wide disparity. And that the SEC is the best conference, and therefore those games are given more weight. And so you heard the conversation. So that was his thought. But I've certainly had, I don't know how much content we've produced on that game, a ton, probably 15 hours of analysis. And so I summarize it with the same talking points in regards to what I consider to be important about that game. And it has to do with Michigan defensive end pressure against Georgia's two tackles. It has to do with Brock Bowers' ability to get downfield for Georgia, and if Michigan has an answer for him, whether that be a safety or a linebacker or a combination of that. George Pickens getting even healthier and more acclimated to the offense during this 3 to 4 week break in practice time, and Cade McNamara and Stetson Bennett being similar players, but Cade McNamara being the risk-averse version of Stetson Bennett. And then lastly, it would just be, it's difficult to gauge which line is going to be dominant over the other line. Because we've seen Michigan play Ohio State and Penn State on down the line. We've seen Georgia play the best opponents that they've played. And then to try to, when they've both been the more physical team against everybody they've played, generally almost everyone they've played on both the offensive and defensive front, to then envision what that's going to look like when they get together, I think that's difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams I think Michigan has a shot because they can match up in the trenches. I mean, the strength of their team is their offensive lines, and their defensive lines are really good. I mean, both teams have a lot of talent, really good talent in their front seven. And, I think the other thing is, they're also really strong at running back. Georgia's really strong at running back. I think if McNamara plays a clean game, which he has for the most part this year, and takes care of the football and hits a few throws, again, I think it's going to be a closer game. I think Georgia has more overall depth of talent, and I think that could, I think in my view that will show up as the game wears along, especially into the fourth quarter. But yeah, I expect it to be a one possession or less game.
Yeah, I expect a close game. Now, if somebody's going to win by a wide margin, I immediately would go to Georgia's side. If somebody was going to tell us right now that the final score is going to be 48-17, I would say Georgia wins. Because if I'm going to be wrong about this game, I'm thinking that I'll be shaking my head in the fourth quarter thinking I should have known Georgia's talent, waves of talent, speed, athleticism overwhelmed Michigan, and they blew them out.
By the way, Mark, I double-checked something. You quoted a stat, and I don't know if you looked up the stat, and I hate to admit this, but, obviously it's the physical truth. When he brought up the record about the SEC against the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Then you said winning percentages. You were right. It was about 63 or about 64%. Well, that was in bowl games. Overall, I think it was still right around 60% overall winning percentage, the SEC against the Big Ten. I think and that's historically true, by the way. I don't know if you had already looked that up, but I actually
that was a guesstimate.
Well, it was a good guesstimate on your part, Mark, is what I'm saying. I mean, I ended up double checking it. I actually looked it up. I actually thought the Big Ten might have had an advantage in the 90s, but it was like 16-11 SEC. I was trying to think of a decade where the Big Ten might have had an advantage. I think the closest was like the 2000s. I thought it was like 18-15 SEC when it was a little bit more competitive. So, you know, I found that interesting that you got that stat. You actually nailed it, Mark. So I want to give you credit on that one.
Well, thank you, David. Now, was there a site that you went to that you could just plug that in, or did you go team by team and go through the scores?
Well, I just did a search on the SEC versus the Big Ten all-time series.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, it kind of broke it down. I think the one decade that the Big Ten had a winning record over the SEC was the 70s. But they didn't play that many times. Yeah. They didn't start to play that many more times until, obviously, the 90s. The 80s, I think they started to play a little bit more. The 90s, they had all those Citrus Bowl games.
Mm-hmm. Citrus, Outback. Yep.
Right, which was the common matchups. So, yeah, that was kind of, you know, went back and did kind of the evaluation on that. But, yeah, when you said that number, I was wondering if he exactly right on that. So I just found it interesting that you threw that out. So I wanted to give you a tip of the cap on that one, Mark.
Well, thank you, David. Over this past decade, off the top of my head, it doesn't look too pretty for the Big Ten. Because I'm thinking, Michigan, like if we go back to 2010, Michigan lost a bowl game to Mississippi State at the end of Rich Rod's run, and Harbaugh's lost to Florida and South Carolina, and Hoke lost to South Carolina. Now Harbaugh beat Florida. Let's see. Ohio State, of course, has the split against Alabama. They lost to Florida in 11. Penn State lost to Georgia. James Franklin's second or third season. And I'm not going to go through the whole conference, but just my initial run through isn't too pretty for the Big Ten, I don't believe.
Right. Like I said, I think in the 90s to like early 2000s, it was fairly competitive. I think it was like 30.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The 2010s was definitely where the separation really started to happen. Yeah, that's correct. I was saying that those were kind of decades where it was a little bit more competitive, though. But yeah, you're right. The separation really happened in the 2010s to kind of present as far as that goes.
Now, I hope that, for argument's sake, that this bowl season will bring us some compelling games between the two conferences, and we will have a genuine debate, a very interesting argument in matching up the results of the two conferences, bowl season and during the regular season non-conference games, to try to have some kind of determination as to the best conference. I hope it's not a runaway.
Right.
Because I think it's debatable right now, just based on the results.
Well, it's not been a good start for the SEC.
No. I don't think I'm not going to overblow the meaning of those results, but they did play 4 games and they lost them all. So it means something.
Right. Oh, no doubt. And there were years there where the SEC did pump up their chest about the bowl records. I remember that. So, I mean, when it goes south on them, pardon the pun, they don't put as much stock on it. But when it goes their way, of course, the statistics, time to bring them up. So, I just found that interesting. I actually think I'm hoping for a good bowl season too, and some good bowl games. And as always, a pleasure to talk college football with you, Mark.
All right, David. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You take care now.
All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's the real MVP. How you doing?
I am doing well. What's going on, man?
Well, Mark, I'm a little disappointed in you.
Oh, yeah?
You
Give it to
didn't
me.
Promote your Virginia Tech channel. How do you not promote your Virginia Tech channel when talking about their bowl game?
Well,
I just-
I am not much of a guy on promotions. I let myself down routine. If people out there only knew, if I promoted this channel and everything that we do here as much as the networks do and other people online do, you would hear a lot of more promotion out of me.
Fair enough. That is fair enough. But the bowl games today were, I mean, Clemson-Iowa State went about the way everybody thought it would. I've never seen a game end on a fumble, though. A backwards fumble.
Yeah.
That caused the fourth down. That's one for the books. Man, Virginia Tech, they got humiliated in front of their new head coach, Brent Pry. I know they had some players out, but losing by 44 is unexcusable, regardless of who you play. So, and Oregon, I mean, if they showed up a little bit in the first half, they probably could have beat Oklahoma because they gave a valiant effort in the second half. But didn't they, with their best player out, the edge rusher who's probably going to be first in the draft?
Kayvon Thibodeau. Yeah, Oregon was a shell of itself in this game. And that's what makes this difficult in evaluating these games is I want to give credit to the winner and I want to hold the loser accountable for the loss because that's pretty much all we have to go on. But to be real about the situation, just like that Mississippi State Texas Tech game last night, Mississippi State had so many players missing in that game. I had a back and forth with somebody on a DM on Twitter about it who was jumping on the SEC for losing all these games. And I get it, but I can't prove this in any such way, but I still believe that Mississippi State's a better team than Texas Tech. And I don't even think it's that close, but they got annihilated last night, but they were missing like 17 players. So I don't know how to really put that into reasonable terms.
Right. I get that. And I kind of want to expand with that in the conversation we just had with things. I would argue that these bowl games mean more to most programs, actually all the programs, than a normal regular season game. First off, you're getting a trophy for playing in the game when most games you don't do that.
Yep.
Second, you're going to be on the biggest stage you will probably ever be on, including if you're Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, maybe not Michigan or Ohio State. Maybe those are the exceptions, but and it's a good recruiting opportunity if you come back next year. I know most of the players that set out aren't coming back in any way, shape, or form, but still, it's a huge deal. And it's just so frustrating as college football fans because, you know, Mark, the NFL, they have how many teams are eliminated from the playoffs? What, 12? Are those meaningless games for those teams?
How many teams are eliminated from the NFL playoffs? I think, they added a team this year or last year. So they're up to 7 per conference. So that's 16. I'm sorry, that's 14 out of 32 make it. It used to be 12 out of 32 up until last year.
Right. But here's my point, okay? I'm not trying to get into semantics. Jacksonville played the Jets last week.
Yes.
None of their players opted out. That's a meaningless game.
They're getting paid.
But do you see my point? You don't want Trevor Lawrence to get hurt.
Well, there's a difference there. That's kind of the.
But do you see what I'm trying to say?
I understand what you're trying to say, but they have nowhere else to elevate their play to. They are not aspiring to go anywhere else. They have reached the ultimate.
Well, I mean, if you've seen Jacksonville, they've got an elevate. They've got a lot of places.
No. I'm talking about the league. They have nowhere else to aspire to. They've reached. That was a shot at Jacksonville. I gotcha. They've reached the pinnacle. They are playing for pay. These guys are setting themselves up to reach that pinnacle to get paid. So it's completely understandable why they opt out. I will argue that. I get it. Regardless of what the perceived risk is, we live in a society, and we've lived through a situation here now for pushing 2 years where we have all sorts of people that are perceiving a risk out there at different levels. And it's based on information that's factual. It's based on information that's completely garbage, trash. It's based on fear. It's based on logic. It's based on nonsense. It's based on a lot of things, but people come to their own conclusion. And so this is the same thing. These players, I would love for someone to review college football games and player injuries and then put it into context in terms of what is the likelihood that a player is going to get injured to the degree that it's going to matter in one of these bowl games. And I know it's a physical sport. It's easy for me to say I'm not going out there getting hit, but it's minuscule. Regardless of how tough these games are, and they are, it's a tough sport. Just think about pick a team and look at the players that were eligible to start the season, and now they've played 13 games, and most of these teams make it through the entire season, and just a couple players are lost at some point during the season. Now, these guys are only looking at the likelihood that they're going to get injured in one game. We're not asking them to play a whole other season with the possibility of getting injured in one of 13 games. So my point is that the likelihood that anybody's going to get injured is minuscule, but it's still a risk. It's possible. It's probably just about as
everything, Mark.
Yeah, there's a risk to everything. There was probably a similar risk that something was going to happen on their way flying to the bowl game, and between the flight and the
probably the drive,
the shuttle,
the dangerous part,
and all of it. Yes, there's a risk there too. So do we stop doing anything? And I still think, and I'm becoming a little bit more fervent about this the more I think about it, despite the right as Americans to choose and do whatever they want, and unfortunately they've gotten to a point in their careers where the schools, the programs can't do anything against them to penalize them because they're done. They still committed to playing a football season, and the football season's not over. I don't know why people are treating this as the end of the football season's not over.
Right. I heard this quote, and it was great. I don't know who said it. People are treating this postseason as if it's an NFL preseason.
I don't get that. To your point,
I don't get it either.
You made a good point a few minutes ago. Not a lot of people have this opportunity, but if you would go on campus and go in the football facility of any of these big-time teams, of which I used to do on a regular basis when I was covering Alabama and Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they have presented and displayed in large cases and are very proud of their bowl trophies. We won the 1953 Orange Bowl and the 1997 Sugar Bowl, and they're all prominently displayed. And to your point, there's nothing mentioned about Alabama winning its non-conference game this year against Miami, or Mississippi State beating North Carolina State in a non-conference game in September. Those games are listed online somewhere, and they're obscure. These games are much more significant than those regular season games, and more people watch them.
Right. And another thing I was going to ask to add on to this point is Oklahoma this year. They played Western Carolina. Why didn't anybody sit out that game?
Yeah, I would figure that would be the game to sit out right there. Sit out of that game. Let's play our backups. They're going to beat Western Carolina by 5 touchdowns anyway.
Right. They beat them 76-0. So at what point if you're up 50-0, isn't that a meaningless game at that point? Is there any difference between 51-0 to 76-0?
It's the timing of the game, and we all know it. It's when the game is played. And that's what it is.
But everybody, for some reason, acts like these injuries only occur within this month of December for whatever reason. I don't get it. People get hurt playing football all year round, right, Mark?
Yeah, I don't think it spikes during the holiday season. No.
Oh.
I don't think a lot
Okay.
of these games are played outside on the ice and snow either. So, Kenneth Walker,
Okay, I was fun.
he's going to sit out of tomorrow night's game against Pitt in the Peach Bowl. And once Michigan State lost its second game, they were out of contention to win the Big Ten. So you could make the argument that their last two games of the regular season against, I think, Rutgers and Penn State were meaningless. And again, he played those two games. And now he's not playing in this game. And more
it's
people
not like a surprise they didn't make the college football playoff.
And a lot more people
are
going to watch.
They were on the edge.
No. And a lot more people are going to watch this game tomorrow night in the Peach Bowl against Pitt than we're watching the Michigan State Rutgers game. The 58,000 people watching on the Big Ten Network is going to be dwarfed compared to the 7 or 8 million people that are going to watch the Peach Bowl tomorrow night.
Yeah, I call that the quitter bowl now because Kenny Pickett and Kenneth. Well, I don't understand. I mean, for both of these, well, especially for Pittsburgh, this is the biggest bowl game Pittsburgh's been in 80 years. And for him just to sit down and say, "Oh, no, forget it."
This is Pitt's what in 80 years?
Biggest bowl game?
No. 80?
I mean, well,
that was a long time
maybe,
ago.
I don't know.
No.
Mark, I have no scale of time, okay?
Well, to real MVP, it's a good thing that you call and you've got a great take on these events that are currently going on, but you're calling the right place because I watched a lot of huge Pitt bowl games in the likes of the Sugar Bowl and the Cotton Bowl during the Dan Marino era and so forth.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, I'm a current events type of guy.
Sure.
The most important thing Pittsburgh has done in any sport for me is when Kemba Walker won the ACC tournament in basketball. That's the most relevant Pittsburgh's been. So
Kemba Walker played for Pitt? I thought he played for UConn.
Yeah. No. Oh, sorry. He hit a game winner against Pitt when he won the ACC.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I got that backwards. He had a step back from the free throw line. Broke a guy's ankle. It was 74-73 was the finals that game.
I'm showing off my college basketball knowledge for everyone who knows that I don't watch any college basketball, that at least I knew Kemba Walker played for UConn.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk about other teams and this is why another team they're showing. What about, Florida State, they fought back. This is why I'm a big fan of, I'm rooting for teams that don't quit, and Florida State fits that category. In fact, I'll even root for Florida. Florida gives them credit if they didn't quit. Ole Miss, Matt Corral. Did you hear Matt Corral's quote about the bowl game if he was going to play in it?
I heard about it, but give it to us because I don't remember what it was.
He says he's a football player and he plays football.
Yeah, there's a football game to be played. Yep.
So that's the best response I think I've ever heard to any dumb question that's ever been asked. I mean, because that Ole Miss Baylor game, that's going to be an excellent game because all the players are playing into it. And that shows, in my opinion, how good the head coaching is of these teams. I mean, Nick Saban, when he was in the Citrus Bowl a few years ago, how many opt-outs did he have, Mark?
The only, there's been a few here and there. The only one that I remember by name was Stephon Diggs. Not Stephon Diggs, his brother, Trayvon Diggs, the corner, did not play a couple years ago. That's the only one I remember.
Yeah, but, I mean, Alabama certainly had the most disappointing season of any team in the modern era because every year they expect to go to the playoffs, win the national championship, and they went to the Citrus Bowl. And yet they still gave it their all. And they're Alabama. So there's no excuses for any of these other teams. I mean, Michigan State, Pittsburgh isn't probably going to be back in the New Year's Six Bowl next year. So I just hate these quitters, man. And that's what they are. And here's my thing, Mark. And this is why I'm worried about expanding the playoff. Let's say you've expanded to 8 or 12. What are the odds? You're already having players quit after one game. How are you going to convince them to play 2 or 3 games?
Yeah, I think we all assume that if we expand the playoff and there's more incentive and these games are more important, that we're all going to perceive it like that. And I don't necessarily know if the players are going to, they're going to tend to be more obligated to play because it's a playoff, but I don't think it's going to be automatic. I do not think it's going to be automatic. So I don't know what to predict out of that, but you're right. Instead of playing 1 game, we're asking them to play 2 or 3 games.
Right. And how are you going to convince who's 12? Is it Michigan State or Pittsburgh? Think it's Michigan State?
Yeah, whoever.
I don't. Yeah, okay. If it's Michigan State, how are you going to convince Kenneth Walker to go up against a harder team in Alabama, which is much more likely to lose? And then if he wins that game, he's going to have to either go up against Ole Miss or Baylor the next round. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm not trying to say,
sure,
saying that, but how would you convince them?
I don't have an answer for you. I think it's going to have to be monetary.
Do you think if you make it monetary, do you think the players should get sponsorship money, bowl revenue money, or percentage of how far they go, or how would you do it?
Well, I really don't care where it comes from myself because I don't have to write the check, but I don't even know if the math works there because I see these bowl sponsors and I don't know. I've never researched how much money we're talking about. So when you see, shoot, give me a bowl sponsor. Who sponsored one of the games tonight? The Cheez-It Bowl. There you go. And I'm sure that the bowl sponsors have various levels of contribution based on obviously the size of the bowl and based on some of these bowls just carry the sponsor name and that's the name of the bowl. It's the Cheez-It Bowl versus other ones are the such and such bowl is presented by so-and-so. So I don't know if the Cheez-It Bowl is throwing 5 million. I don't know if they're throwing 50 million. I don't know. I can't imagine it's more than 50 or less than 5, but I don't know how sizable that contribution is. Well, football is played by a lot of players, and so there are 85 scholarship players on each team. That's 170. If they give each one of them 10 grand, if my math's right, that's $1.7 million. So I don't know where the math, it may work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I just don't know if it works.
How about to accommodate for the players? How about you give them a minimum, and then for the amount of snaps extra, or for the amount of snaps, you give them a bonus.
The amount of what?
Snaps they play.
Oh, snaps. Okay. Okay.
That way you can't have Kenneth Walker come in for one play, sit out for the rest of the game.
Well, yeah, you've got that potential of a problem. Yeah, then it would really get ugly. If we would have players opting out of games during the game to say, you know what? I played the first series. I'm done. I'm not getting hurt. Man, I got walloped going out of bounds the last play I was in. Give me my 10 grand. I'm done for the night. You know, that's an ugly situation when we've got a situation where the game is that inconsequential to them. And I'm not saying it would be, but to some of them, it probably would.
Right. I mean, Kyle Trask kind of did this last year when he only played a quarter.
Who only played the fourth quarter?
the first quarter or first half, Kyle Trask last year.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like this is something that's never been done before.
Was that his decision?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said it before the game.
I wouldn't have played him. If I was his head coach and he told me, and he was dictating to me, the head coach, how much he was going to play, I'd say, you're right. You're not going to play the second quarter, the third quarter, or the fourth. You're not, in fact, going to play the first quarter. You're not playing. Are you playing or not playing? We've got a game to play that lasts at least 4 quarters, and we may need you to the last snap of the game. So if you don't want to play the entire game, you're not playing any of the game.
Well, you got to consider who their head coach was in the damn moment, and he endorsed
Yes.
the quitting.
There's a reason he doesn't have a job anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. I think, honestly, to get these bowl players to play, I know this may sound dramatic, but you broke the contract. I mean, you can't complete 90% of a construction project and then quit in the last 10%. You're not getting paid.
And that's maybe what we should do. I think you've got another good suggestion there, and it kind of ties in with some comments I've made in the last couple of weeks about this, is that maybe there needs to be some more restrictive wording in their scholarship. They signed a scholarship. The scholarship is completely based on athletic performance. They're not brainiacs that gained a scholarship to said university because they've got a 1400 SAT or whatever. It's all about their athleticism and their ability to, there are games to be, you have signed and you accepted a scholarship, which is worth a lot of money. You need to fulfill the terms of the scholarship, which means you complete the seasons.
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't think scholarships aren't worth a lot of money, there's a lot of people I know who are in student debt.
Yes.
If you want to pay that off,
So you're looking at the father, yes, of someone who has a greater appreciation for all of this. Not that I wasn't aware, like any other breathing American, about roughly what college tuition is like. But my daughter's now graduated from college, and so she's faced with a lot of student debt that she'll be paying off by the month. So anytime we've had a conversation on here and people have said, well, these scholarships aren't worth much, we need to pay these players. Yeah, they are worth a lot of money. Yes, they are. They are valuable. So then I guess to real MVP, we get to a place where the student athlete signs a contract. It's called a scholarship. They're obligated to fulfill to the end of that particular, and you could write it in such a way in which if they opted to go to the NFL after their junior year, they're not obligated to play 4 years, but to whatever season they choose is going to be their last season, they have to play to the completion of the season as well as they check out physically and they are healthy. And if they don't, then you take them to court, breach of contract. And that's what you would have to do.
Right. Because, I mean, it's almost like the players at this point have more power than the university.
Oh, yeah.
Even though the players are the ones that are working. Because they couldn't, a university still provides them an education, the equipment to play the game, the travel for the game. I mean, this ain't your local YMCA team getting together and for $50 playing a game. I mean, there's a lot of money that the university is putting up for you to play, have the opportunity to showcase your talents to the NFL, and then for you just to disrespect the university and what it stood for and the history of the university with their great players, to say, I'm not going to play in this bowl game. Now, I'm sure the athletes don't look at it that way because it's the me trophy, gold trophy mentality that we live in, but still.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate the phone call. I'm going to move on to these other calls. We've had people waiting patiently. So thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Can I just say one last thing?
Absolutely.
One last. Mark, you're only 12 subscribers away on your USC channel from hitting 1,000. I'm pretty sure. How many people are watching?
I don't know. I haven't checked. How many people do we have on here?
Then more than 12.
182.
We could just get 12 of those people to go to the USC channel and subscribe. You can hit 1K tonight.
Oh, man. That would make me a happy man going to bed and looking forward to bowl games tomorrow. That would do it. The real MVP, I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great rest of your show.
Yeah, as was just stated, we've got a USC channel, and YouTube algorithms point to 1,000 subscribers being key. So we would like to get that channel to 1,000 subs. So if you love USC football, of course, head on over to our USC channel and subscribe right there. Just search Voice of College Football USC. You'll be able to find the channel. And even if you don't like USC, if you want to see our content continue to grow and flourish and us continue to do what we're doing here, please subscribe to the USC channel. And if it bothers you that much that you're subscribed to a USC channel, then wait till we are substantially above 1,000 subs, and then you can unsubscribe. And I would appreciate it. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Chris, and I don't want to waste much of your time, Mark, because the real MVP covered quite a bit of it. But, well, no, I mean, in terms of, I don't mean it as a criticism of him. I'm just saying, you know, I was just kind of curious. Chris, I never played beyond grade school. In fact, I barely made even, it doesn't even really matter. I don't know enough about, you know, what happens between, you know, I do know the 1 year I played in middle school, if I wasn't eligible, I sat. I can tell you that much. They didn't make an exception for me, and not that they should have, but I mean, I missed a game at least because, and it wasn't that I was ineligible, it was because I failed to turn my eligibility slip into the right person or something. I was actually eligible, but, you know, I didn't play. I sat a week, you know, because of my status or whatever. And of course, that was when I was still pretty young, but yeah, I guess my point is, you know, if I wasn't eligible, I didn't play. I mean, there was no, I couldn't go to anybody and, you know, twist their arm and get me in the game. You know, that wasn't even an option. So I have a little bit of a difficult time understanding especially if these players are all eligible, why they wouldn't want to. I guess they have the right, maybe not to, but you know, if I was on a team and if we had a game left, I think I'd maybe want to play. But I guess the question I might have is what benefit, and we've already talked about it. I remember the last time I called you, you kind of went into it, but I honestly don't see much benefit out of sitting out a game. I mean, it just makes it sound like you're not going to, if you go to the pros, you might not, if you're not in the playoffs or whatever, you might just sit out the last two games. Or I don't really understand the psychology behind it. I think Mike Leach even went into kind of a detailed, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I don't know if it has anything to do with the game they were in, but, you know, he basically kind of told those players that he said said they quit on their team. They're not opting out of anything. They just quit on their team, you know. And I've never been in that situation myself where I could even say anything about it, but you know, I don't understand why not just play one more game, you know, finish your season and then do whatever you want after that. I don't know if is there an explanation that I'm missing or besides the potential of playing in the NFL?
No, I think you were dead on. I think it all comes down to these players that one player at one point, and to my best recollection, this is not official, but the first two players I remember opting out, deciding not to play in a bowl game, were Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette. And so ever since then, as you well know, once that barrier is broken, once there is a precedent that's set, it gives others the power, the thought to go ahead and do the same thing and think, okay, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm preparing for an NFL career. I don't want to get hurt. Therefore, I'm not going to risk injury in playing this game that I deem not to be that important. And so this just continues and continues and continues. And that's the thought process.
You said it was the Sun Bowl. That wasn't the one between Oklahoma and Stanford, was it?
No, that was the Stanford, North Carolina game.
The one that he sat out on?
McCaffrey sat out of
I don't really.
North Carolina Stanford Sun Bowl game.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember there was a Sun Bowl played between Oklahoma and Stanford, and I think it was back when they in Oklahoma still had that quarterback that took over for Sam Bradford. What was his name?
Yeah, I think that was Landry Jones.
They played in Yeah, and I don't follow the, to know whether or not that. My guess would be that would have been a pretty good game for the Sun Bowl to have Stanford and Oklahoma. And so I know that isn't the one you're talking about, but I don't know why. I guess I'm just using that as an example because I don't think anybody did sit out on that one. But I don't think Oklahoma was all that great that year. But I don't think Oklahoma really thinks too well of those players if they sit out, do they? They're not really. I don't think that's something they really like to see happen, is it?
Well, nobody likes to see it happen.
No, but I mean, in terms of the way it reflects on the school, I think that's what I'm trying to tell you is players can do whatever they want. Let's just say it was Spencer Rattler, and I'm not saying that's what he would have done, but let's just say they were in the, that bowl or whatever, playing Stanford, and Spencer Rattler decided he wasn't ready to go. I mean, they would just say, fine, we'll put in Caleb Williams, and you don't have to play. I mean, I don't think Oklahoma would really bat an eye to it. I don't think they'd be like, I could be wrong. I mean, you told me that there was all kinds of opt-outs in the last year. Oklahoma played Florida in the Cotton Bowl. I didn't even really see that game, but I doubt that there was too many on the Oklahoma side, were there? Or am I wrong about that?
No.
Well, am I right then? I don't know. I mean, I'm asking you, I guess.
Are you right
I don't follow it that closely about Oklahoma not letting people opt out for no reason other than,
It has nothing to do with anybody. It has nothing to do with a school letting anyone. The schools are powerless. The players decide that they are opting out of the game, and nobody has any control over it. Nobody has any repercussion.
Yeah, but I'll bet there weren't too many players on the Oklahoma side that were out of the game, though, I'll bet. Am I wrong?
They had at least 4 players opt out of tonight's game. This is not an Oklahoma problem, or Oklahoma's not exempt from this problem. This has to do with every school in the country that has draft-eligible players.
Well, I guess the question, maybe I'm not explaining it the way you make sense to you, but I think when you go to Oklahoma or any of those big-time schools, I think you're expected to. You're expected to kind of play until. And if you don't want to play, then they're not going to waste a whole lot of time listening to what the reason might be. They're going to put whoever wants to play in the game. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. So let's just say there were 20 players. I don't think there were, but just say it was 20 players that didn't. I don't think Oklahoma would really. I don't think they'd care if it was 20. They would put the 20 in if they think wanted to play, and then. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I mean, I don't get the impression that would fly too far at Oklahoma. Having people say, "Well, that's lit for me," put in Caleb Williams over me. I'm done. I don't think that would fly too far at Oklahoma. Am I wrong?
I'm not understanding what Oklahoma has to do with this. This is a college football problem that is affecting.
What I'm trying to say is you weren't.
This is
your spot at Oklahoma.
This is a college football problem that's affecting every school that has players good enough to make the NFL draft.
Yeah, but how many of those players actually make the roster? I mean, I guess my point is, Mark, it's like they can find a million reasons if they want to not to want to play. But I think, like I said, if you're playing for Oklahoma, it doesn't have to be Oklahoma, but you said that you're going to stick through is what it's kind of the impression I have. And if you don't, I don't think they're going to waste a whole lot of time trying to figure out what the reasons are. They'll put in Caleb Williams. I'm using that as an example, but it doesn't have to be the quarterback. They'll put whoever wants to be in there, and they'll pull you out. I think that's probably what Caleb Williams is playing.
They have to put somebody else in there because these players are deciding we're not playing anymore. They're done.
Yeah, but my point is, it's kind of like when I was playing. If I had a reason not to play, that didn't matter what the reason was. They weren't going to stop. Oh, Chris isn't going to play. Well, we can't play the game without Chris. Let's just forfeit the game,
Well, they still have to play the game. Yes, they are contractually obligated to play the game. Yeah, the games are not stopping because players are opting out.
Well, that's kind of my point. If I wouldn't have played because I didn't have a tummy ache or something, they're not gonna. I'll be fine. We'll put in the next guy that your backup. And we're going to try to win the game, and it's not going to matter whether we're not going to.
That's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Our best player wasn't in the game, so even though we lost, they're not going to. I don't think that really flies too far at Oklahoma. I don't think they have we have to. We didn't have our best. Spencer Rattler was our better player, and so we're not going to count that as a loss. We didn't have our better player in there at the game. I don't think they really think that way at Oklahoma, and maybe I'm wrong. I never actually I think when you lose, I think that's kind of it's a mark on it's a black eye, you know. And I think it should be that way for everybody. And I don't think they want to opt out. I guess, you know, you're talking about McCaffrey. I think he had a pretty good Rose Bowl, didn't he? That one year, didn't he like run over 300 yards or something like that?
Yes, he did.
I'm pretty sure he had a really good. Well, you know, why didn't he opt out of that game then if he didn't care? You know,
because he was still coming.
You know?
These are players who are draft eligible players. Christian McCaffrey was not a draft eligible player the year that they played in the Rose Bowl. He was coming back to play for Stanford the next season. These are players that are either seniors or they are juniors who are declaring for the NFL draft, who are deciding that they do not want to risk injury. Therefore, they are opting out and not playing in the bowl games. Those are the players involved.
Well, why not opt out the whole season and don't risk any injury? Well, that way you don't get hurt. That's a good way to, you know, rather than one game, opt out the whole year and then you're guaranteed not to get hurt. I don't see that as a really very good reason to quit. You know, it's kind of the way I look at it. I'm not the best example of somebody that doesn't quit. I quit several things, but I'm just thinking in terms of, you know, moving forward or whatever.
Well,
is it really going to benefit these?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to see the players quit. They are under scholarship. They are committed to play a season with that team, and the season's not complete until the bowl game's over. So they should play. But they have the right as American citizens to do whatever they want in that regard. And the team and the school has no repercussion because they don't go back to class. They're done. They're out. So there's no repercussion against them, unfortunately.
Well, I actually kind of think maybe there is, and we're just not addressing it.
Okay. What would it be?
I think it's somebody that does. Well, let's just say you had one more broadcast to do, Mark, and but you're going to go to ABC or wherever, and you know, you've already been paid for your whole, you know, whatever it is. And even though you're under obligation to finish it out, you know, there's no benefit to you to finish. So I'm just going to, one game early or whatever, you know, I'll just quit. And there's not going to be any consequence to that. You know, they already paid me or they, you know, whatever it is. You know, I don't really feel like going in and doing another show. I'll just quit right now. I mean, I guess you could say there's no consequence to that, but it reflects, I think it reflects on a person's, on their integrity a little bit. I mean, there's nothing that says there's nothing to tell you could quit right now if you wanted to, I guess.
Oh, I agree with you. It does reflect on somebody's character, depending on who's making that judgment. There could be certain NFL teams that are saying, we don't want to draft this particular player, or we're going to knock them down our draft evaluation because they decided not to play, whereas these other players went ahead and stayed with their team and committed and fulfilled their commitment. That's, I'm sure, part of the evaluation, but it obviously does not hurt these players enough to where it's becoming part of business. It's becoming the norm for a certain amount of players to opt out of these games. Therefore, it's not hurting it apparently is not hurting their draft status.
Mm-hmm. There was one, if you don't mind, I don't want to take much more of your time, but
sure.
You know, I think I made one more. Just one more, and you know, I think I've already kind of talked about it. So if it's something that you don't want to talk about, I'll understand. But why not, instead of 4 teams, how about if we expand to 6? That gives us an extra bowl game, and we don't have to use my rankings. I mean, but let's just pretend that we do, just for sake of argument, whatever. You know, that what's good about that, just from my perspective, you know, I didn't have Cincinnati ranked especially high. I don't have Cincinnati. Like if I was the administrator or whatever. And if I had to rely solely on my rankings, Cincinnati wouldn't advance. They don't rank sufficiently. In fact, they're actually ranked a little bit. They're actually ranked behind Notre Dame in the way I rank it. And so, and Ohio State would actually advance in a 14 bracket. So what I'm kind of suggesting is, if they use 6 teams, that would, you know, that's another game that we can watch that might impact, you know, who goes. And then that's 3 teams, right? You have the 3 instead of 2. So that's 3 teams advance. And then what do you think about maybe making the 4th game the FCS national champion? What do you think of that?
So the issue I have, Chris, with 6 teams is I don't think buys work. So that's the only problem I have is that
I'm not saying a buy. I'm saying admit another game like the Rose Bowl. Like, so let me get the Rose Bowl. So the winner of the Rose Bowl goes with the winner of the Cotton and the Orange.
Okay.
So we have 3 teams, and then the FCS national champion. That's your 14 bracket right there.
Oh,
the
okay.
FCS.
I thought you
So
said 6.
North
I'm
Dakota
sorry.
State, maybe. Well, 6 teams with 8 total. So we're going to include the FCS national champion, so that's 8 total. 8.
The Rose Bowl champion, the Cotton Bowl champion, the Orange Bowl champion,
and the FCS national champion.
The FCS national champion. That's 4.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it.
Right.
Okay.
That's it. That's your 14. That's your 14 bracket. That's like in 1984. We could have put BYU, Florida, Washington, and was it Montana State that year? I can't really remember, but I think it might have been. So that's your 14 bracket would have been, well, like kind of like this year, really. Montana State might win. But so if Montana State wins this year, which they could, maybe give Montana State a kind of like in 1984, give them a shot to, see if they can maybe. I don't think probably couldn't, but you never know until you're there. Do you have any thoughts about what that might be like? Do you like it, dislike it? Or?
Oh, I think it's interesting. I think we would have to reconfigure what conferences are connected to what bowl games, because you only have the Cotton, the Sugar, and what did you say? The Rose? So like the Big 12 champions.
The Orange.
So we would have to figure out how to squeeze the 5 conferences into these 3 bowl games. So I guess the 5
out of 6 teams.
I guess the 5 conference champions.
5 out of 6.
Yeah. So out of 6 slots, you would go with and then what would you do with the group of 5 teams?
Well, Cincinnati, I'm telling you, if they use, I'm not saying that I would be the one to do all this. I mean, I'm just saying if they listen to my ideas, the 6 teams that would go would include Notre Dame would be one, and Cincinnati would be one, Ohio State would be one, Michigan would be one, Alabama and Georgia. That's your 6 teams right there.
So you're using your rankings. Yeah, that's right. You said you're going to use your rankings. You don't care who wins conferences.
No.
Okay.
I don't. So Utah wouldn't go. I mean, that's the one team it wouldn't include.
Utah wouldn't go.
Not the way I do it anymore.
Pitt wouldn't go. Baylor wouldn't go.
Pitt wouldn't go. Baylor wouldn't go. No.
So why would Ohio State go over Georgia, or why would Notre Dame go over Georgia?
No, Georgia's going.
Oh, Georgia's going. Okay.
Georgia's definitely going. And why wouldn't they go over, because they rank higher on the scale that I use. The teams that I included rank higher than the other ones that don't. I think that Oklahoma wouldn't go. Baylor wouldn't go. You said Pittsburgh, they wouldn't go. What are the other ones we're thinking of maybe? Cincinnati would go because they're ranked higher than the other ones that you say should go, or like Utah. They're actually ranked higher. Cincinnati's ranked higher than Utah. That's why they would go. And they're ranked higher. They're number 6 in my ranking. Number 6.
Okay.
I would include 6 teams and limit it to 6. Yeah.
So we would go with your rankings, and the top 6 teams would play in those 3 bowl games, and the 3 winners would play in a 4-team tournament with the FCS champion.
Yeah, and that's going to be either North Dakota State or Montana State. Whoever wins, obviously.
Okay. So
they'd be the 4th. Yeah.
It would be an interesting experiment. I would love to see it play out, because I guarantee after 5 years it would be determined that FCS champion does not belong anywhere close to those other teams. So that would have to be played out on the field, but I would bet my mortgage that none of those teams are coming anywhere close within 4 touchdowns of anybody else that's going to play in that tournament. But that's fine. You would get a lot of pushback and a number of reasons in which we don't have time to break it down right now. But it's an interesting concept, and at least there would be a playoff to determine the national champion. All right, Chris.
It would have worked in 1984. So. All right.
I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Have a good night. You too.
You too. Bye.
All right. So we should probably have Chris come back on. He can explain his tournament that he just did, and we would explain it graphically so everyone could see it, then we could take some kind of vote on it. I think we all know it's not going to fly because it involves the FCS, and nobody wants to see the FCS champion lose by 50 points. But I would be curious to watch the FCS champion play in a playoff against the likes of Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, etc. Would be fascinating, but I don't think it would hold up very long. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's your resident Maryland fan. How are you doing?
McD, what's going on?
I'm sure you watched it, but
I did.
Maryland probably played their most complete game since the Syracuse game. I don't count FCS opponents, but they probably played the most complete game they have played since the Syracuse game. And I know a lot of it has to do with Virginia Tech. I'm going to talk about Virginia Tech a little bit here in a minute. But in my opinion, I thought this was the best game Tola Tagovailoa has looked in. Defensively, Maryland played lights out. I think offensively they did. And I'm going to talk about Virginia Tech in a little bit. So I'm not going to really hold your feet to the fire here. But you got to give Mike Locksley credit. They took the bowl game seriously, and they won 54-10 in the Pinstripe Bowl.
Well, the first thing that came to mind, besides you basking in the glow of Maryland's enormous win, they were only a 3.5-point favorite, and I did pick them to win, and I picked them to cover, but for them to win by 47 points or 44 points, mighty impressive. The other thing that came to mind for me was Paul Van Wagner is a host on ESPN Blacksburg and covers Virginia Tech. And it was funny because Paul's a great guy. He's a phenomenal guy. And I'm not throwing him under the bus. This was all out there for everyone to see. But it was just funny because this was a couple months ago, in which you should take a little pride in your host here, because I was sticking up for Maryland football because they were talking about the state of Virginia Tech football. So he was on a live stream on my channel, but I was not on the live stream. I was just watching, checking in. And they were talking about the decline of Virginia Tech football. And he made a comment about, well, at least it hasn't gotten as bad as Maryland. Maryland's a trash program. It's horrible, something like that. So I jumped in the comments section and I basically said, Maryland's just as good as Virginia Tech, if not better. If they played this year, Maryland would beat them. And he just laughed and he was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Maryland's a piece of trash. And I said, I am telling you, if Maryland played Virginia Tech this year, they would win. They're a better football team. And it's just funny that they were matched up in a bowl game, and obviously Maryland's much better.
Well, the reason why Maryland beat Virginia Tech is because Virginia Tech looked like an FCS team out there. And I'm not going to take many shots at Virginia Tech here, but I watched the entirety of that game from start to finish. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to say is about more or less about the second string. I know they were missing a lot of players. I know the transfer portal got hit pretty hard with them. I'm sure your Virginia Tech players are going to sit there and say it's a retool, not a rebuild. And in Paul Fry, and I have a funny story about Paul Fry. I don't know if you watched it. It's kind of early in the game.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's a rebuild. It's a rebuild in Virginia Tech, in my opinion. That team, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the second strings they put in there in the second half once it got out of hand, I don't even know they could be backups in Group 5 teams. Like, put them in the MAC. I don't even know they're backups on that, in the MAC. On like Bowling Green, Kent State, who we faced earlier this year, which actually competed not bad against Maryland. But I think it's a complete rebuild there at Virginia Tech. I think they let Justin Fournette, I think they let him go a year too late. I don't know if you remember, but after last season, I said they should let Justin Fournette go. He was a dead man walking. Basically, I think Virginia Tech needs to. I think they need to tear it all down and just reboot and rebuild the whole program. The good news, I think, is I do think that's the right head coach, but I think it's a long rebuild there at Virginia Tech. I really do. From what I saw today, I just don't think. I don't think they have many. I really don't think they have a lot of ACC players on their team, but I think Paul Fry. I think he is the right guy for that job. I just think it's a rebuild from what I saw today. So.
Oh, well, we knew that before today's game, that it's a rebuild for Virginia Tech to be competing for championships in the ACC.
Well, they are in the weaker conference out of the two, even though I know Mario Christianball. I know I kind of have my reservations about that hire, but I do think he will win the Coastal Division more years than not once he gets things going there at Miami. But,
absolutely. All right. I'm still trying to piece things together here, but anything else going on, man?
No, we see you on the screen. I'm watching the screen right now.
I know. I got myself back on there, but I'm still trying to reconnect this caller line. Okay.
But yeah, I just want to come on here and gloat about the Maryland win. Thanks for my call, Mark. Go Terps. Successful season at 7-6. Can't wait for week 1 against Buffalo next year in 2022.
Good stuff, man. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, we had a bit of a power surge here where I was not getting any electric to my laptop and had to switch a number of things, and that knocked me off there for a minute. So hopefully everybody's fine. I don't know what that did to the phone calls though, because I can still hear the phone lines, but I can't connect to pick anyone else up. So I reestablished that, but I don't know if I've got any calls or what that did to the calls. So, all right. It is a healthy 2 a.m. anyway. So, Dustin, appreciate your contribution. Appreciate that so much. Thank you for that. Hey, Mark, I got your email address to sponsor. I'll send the details probably after this weekend. Go Blue Buddy. I'm not a blue buddy, but go blue, comma, buddy. All right, Dustin, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And let's see. Where are we? We also had DeAndre. I hope DeAndre's still listening, because DeAndre sent in a couple super chats just to say good job. I don't know what it was good job for, but apparently I'm satisfying DeAndre's standards tonight. So he said good job a couple times with a couple super chat contributions. So we appreciate that. And also Uncle Rico is in the super chat. So thank you so much for that, Uncle Rico. All right. I think we're back up and at 'em, I believe. Although this is telling me no host connection. So if somebody's, oh man, I think I came into the wrong. Hang on just a second. I think I can correct this. There we go. I think. There we go. We've got two callers on the line. Very nice. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey.
Hello?
Hey, Mark, it's Mike. Can you hear me?
Hey, Mike. What's going on?
Nothing much. I don't know if you remember me, but I usually call in after games and usually give you my predictions. And I don't remember if you remember what my prediction was for the Georgia-Alabama game, where I told you Alabama will be more prepared because of the fact that their offense and defense has been tested the whole year, and you and me agree. I don't remember if you remember that.
I apologize, Mike. I do not remember anybody's predictions. So I'm sorry.
Oh.
I take however many phone calls every night, so I'm not remembering your caller prediction from about a month ago. But it's on record. It's on the record, so it's there.
Yeah, it's on the record. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's on record anyway. So if anybody wants to check, that's fine. So I just wanted to call you, not about the previous caller, but the one before. So I just wanted to elaborate basically about the draft process, because I think people are sort of getting it are sort of misconstruing what it is, because I'm one of the people that wants players to play in the games, but there's multiple factors that people don't know. So the player Jalen Smith, when he was at Notre Dame, I know you probably noticed already, but he had gotten injured, and then after that, that's when the whole wave of the players trying to opt out for the bowl game because of the fact of draft preparation. And the thing is, usually they don't get as many snaps anyways, because the younger players, I don't know if you know this, but the younger players usually get way more snaps during the preparation for the bowl game, because, those extra 15 or 16 practices are basically essentially almost like a spring session, you know what I mean? Right when classes end up until the bowl game preparation. So they're not getting as much reps, and they're basically already done. And the second thing, too, is that during that period that they opt out, they immediately are able to have like interview requests and different things like that and get their body prepared. So I was one of the people who at first was like, no worries, it's not that they don't care for their school or whatever. And then I had a lady friend of mine that I used to talk to. Her son was one of the people who was projected, I think, for a second or third round pick. And he decided to opt out because of this. And I saw like the resume that they had to do, the amount of teams that they had to speak to. They had to go to yoga and everything and these things every day. And he said if he didn't have the ability to opt out, he knows that he wouldn't have did as good as he would have at the combine if it wasn't for that. So I think that's just where I think that's the part that people are missing, the amount of draft preparation that you have to do. Say, for example, right, Matt Corral, he's going to be a high pick no matter what because of what he's produced. So I understand that. But let's think about somebody from Western Kentucky or Illinois State
or like even from Missouri. You know what I'm trying to say? Like just like a regular linebacker, the way that they can improve their stock is by trying to get into that draft preparation as much as possible. If that makes sense to you.
Well, Mike, I'm sure you educated a number of people, but I'm also guessing that the majority of people that are listening understand all that. Yeah, we're aware of the draft process and the preparation for the draft and why they opt out.
Oh yeah, I wasn't saying you for sure because I know you know that, but I'm saying the other caller was saying that they're just quitting on their team. But the thing is that with the practices leading up, they're already training the younger players. Like the seniors are rarely if ever getting as much snaps because they already get senior invites to the bowl games. So that's the point that I think that that he was missing.
Sure.
Because it's not like, say for example, do you get what I'm trying to go to? Because I was on the same level as you guys before I understood how difficult it was for the draft process and trying to improve your stock. You get what I mean?
I get what you mean, but both of these opinions can be true at the same time. The opinion that the players are opting out to better their draft status, not risk injury, prepare themselves for the NFL draft, that can be true, and it is true, but it can also be true, the opinion that they are quitting on their team. Both can be true at the same time.
Okay. So you believe a 4 year okay, I'll say it like this. A 3 year starter who's draft eligible, that's high grade stats and wants to improve is quitting after not playing the bowl game?
It doesn't matter how great his stats are. That's irrelevant.
No, that's what I'm trying. Okay. I think I probably worded it correctly. So the fact that they've been there for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And they played well, and they've had a chance to already, how can I say? What's the word I can say? Basically, quicken the draft process by already being able to not be at all those practices and being able to actually talk to NFL teams and actually get themselves prepared for the combine is just already essentially quitting when they're trying to make money for themselves. That's why I sort of.
You're not understanding my point. They have every right to do what they're doing. There is nothing legally binding them to finish out the season or fulfill their scholarship. But they are quitting on their team. People don't like that term. People that are defending the players don't like the term quitting, but that's what they're doing. They're quitting on their team. They're not legally bound to anything. What they are doing is perfectly legal in the American system. And so I support it in terms of them exercising their free rights, but that doesn't mean it's ethical. That doesn't mean it's upstanding for them to quit on their team. I can, if I want to make this comparison, I'm going to go out there with this one. If I cheated on my wife, that's not against the law, and divorced her, that's not against the law. It's all legal. That doesn't mean it's ethical or the right thing to do.
True. I understand from that vantage point. So do you feel what Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley did was unethical and also quitting on their game?
Well, unfortunately, we're in a situation that unless some rules were changed or enacted, that's the only way a coach can leave a team and go to another team. That's the only way they can. That's when the jobs are available.
Yeah, during that period, but usually, it's because it's for early signing period. But wouldn't they want to coach for that bowl game and then wait for January to come in, but they'd miss out on the recruits?
Well, that's a good point. They could do both. A lot of coaches do. Dan Lanning's doing that right now with Georgia. He is the head coach at Oregon, but he's also fulfilling his defensive coordinator responsibilities at the University of Georgia and is going to call the defensive plays in the playoffs and maybe the national championship game. So we see both play out. So that's a good point that you're making, that we could have coaches who accept a job at another school, but still fulfill their coaching obligations for the rest of that season and coach in a postseason game or a bowl game. Now, we also have to understand that a number of schools do not want them around. Like if Lincoln Riley said, I took the USC job, but I will stay and coach the Alamo Bowl 3 weeks from now for Oklahoma. Do you think Oklahoma wanted him to stay and stick around and coach that bowl game? No.
Of course not, yo.
So I don't like the way these coaching transitions take place either, but this would be the only way that the coaches can leave to take other jobs, because this is when the jobs are open. So the coaches get fired typically at the end of the regular season. As soon as the last regular season game is played, boom, we see a bunch of coaches get fired the next day. And in the case of USC and Florida and Texas Tech, they had already been fired. And so that's when the jobs are available. So that's when there's going to be interviews and jobs taken. So those are the schools doing that to themselves. So the schools are doing that anyway. So it's not the coaches, just the coaches. We can't just point at the coaches and say, you're not being good people by staying at your job. The schools are creating the job openings by firing coaches. So they're creating the system of the coaches needing to jump ship and take another job. So the loyalty runs both ways. So I don't want to get this. I don't want you to misunderstand where I stand concerning these players. They have every right in the world to leave their team, and they are quitting. That's what they're doing. They're quitting. There is still a season to be played. The season's not over. There's still a bowl game to be played, and we can all put a different meaning or worth or value on that bowl game from different perspectives. So they are quitting on their team, but that's fine. That's the decision they've made to prepare for the NFL draft, and that's their right to do that. We just don't like it as college football fans and would like the players to not quit on their teams and to complete the season. And there are possibly ways in which the system can be changed to give them incentive to do such, or their scholarships could be written in such a way to legally bind them to complete the season. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
True.
But
yeah, me either. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just usually what I see online and people are just so quick to bash the players, but then commend the coaches for being able to get more money, which I understand. Well, my whole point from what I was saying is, I don't like the fact that they like you said. I will agree with the fact that they are quitting by the terms and the words of basically being a football player on that team. But it's just the fact that they're trying to be able to get money, get more money than they would in college, just like the coaches are. You know what I mean? And trying to transition.
Sure. They're making a business decision.
Yeah, exactly. They're making a business decision. Perfect wording, just like the coaches would. And my second question for you would be: do you think that Michigan can somewhat replicate the passing attack that Alabama had to at least exploit Georgia's secondary?
Well, I like how you put that, because I've stated that in a similar way a number of times to say, if I'm Michigan, I'm watching the tape, obviously, against Georgia, because nobody's been able to move the ball against them until Alabama. And I do not think that Michigan there's no question that they do not have the talent at quarterback that Alabama does, but they have a capable quarterback. I think that without John Mechie, and obviously Alabama had a turnover at wide receiver, so they don't have quite the just ridiculous elite receivers across the board that they've had the last 4 or 5 years. I think that Michigan has comparable receivers to be able to. I think it all comes down to basically McNamara making the throws, and I don't know if Michigan's offensive line can pass protect as effectively as Alabama's did, but I think their receivers are in the general ballpark as good. Jameson Williams is kind of on another level in terms of being able to kick it into another gear once he's got the ball in his hands. But other than that, yeah, I very much would think that Michigan would be watching that. And I think it's little known by most people that Michigan has more explosive plays of 30, 40, and 50 plus yards than any team in the country. And they've got to be watching that Alabama tape thinking, okay, let's be honest with ourselves to know where we're as good as Alabama and where we are not, to understand, can we do what Alabama just did? What can we take from their blueprint and apply it to what we do? They better be doing that.
Yeah, they totally need to. Something that I noticed, and you know how styles make fights. The two offenses, well, obviously, the two offenses that we know gave Georgia some trouble. Obviously, was Alabama. We know, of course, but I know you probably noticed as well. But Tennessee in the first quarter, they were able to put up, I think, about 10 points in the first quarter, something that they didn't even give up the whole season up to that point. And that's why I sort of fear that they won't be able to exploit it fully. Do you know if Cade has good enough legs? As good as legs as Bryce Young's? Do you know that? Are you aware?
If Cade McNamara has as good a scrambling ability as Bryce Young?
Yeah, scrambling ability, yeah.
No. But I think he's close.
Oh, no.
Bryce Young is a better athlete than Cade McNamara.
Oh, yeah, the reason, oh, sorry, I forgot to ask you the follow-up question. The reason why I was asking you that is because I feel like we'll get a nice dose of Jason McCarthy for sure. That I feel like usually, you know, when he comes in, he either comes in for short passes or for quarterback design runs. I actually like his arm from what I've seen in like a certain game, obviously in garbage time and not in big time situation like a semifinal. But I feel like they will have to bring out some tricks. So how can I word this? Basically, if Georgia stops the run, what % chance do you give Michigan of winning?
If Georgia stops the run?
Completely, yes.
I give Michigan a close to 0% chance. They've got to be able to run. They got to run for at least 100 yards in this game.
Yeah, me too. And that's what I think. And my worst fear is that they're going to focus on stopping the run and just dare Cade to beat them. And I just don't know how they're going to do it. That's my biggest fear.
If I was Georgia, I would sell out and stop the run, and I would trust my corners, and I would want to see them. Now I would have a plan B to then adjust and then start to help my corners. But I would make Michigan prove that they could beat me downfield.
True, I totally agree. So, and in the second matchup, I just want your honest opinion, and I know how you feel about Cincinnati because we feel the same way. But do you think Sauce Gardner is a bit overrated because of the conference he plays in and doesn't usually go against huge wideouts like Jameson Williams? And who do you think will step up in the Alabama run game since their secondaries, since Cincinnati's secondary is so elite, according to some experts?
Well, I got to think that Sauce Gardner is as good as advertised just based on NFL scouting reports and where he is projected to go in the NFL draft. But he's just one guy on defense. They can certainly scheme around. I don't think they're going to be afraid of him. I don't think they're going to throw away from him. I don't think Alabama thinks like that. I think that they just run their offense, and certainly they understand where the weak spots are. But I don't think that they're going to game plan around Sauce Gardner. They're going to be understanding of where he is. So I just don't think this game's going to be a competitive deep into the second half.
Likewise, too. I think usually in games like these are where the trenches show up, and Cincinnati is just, I don't know, man. If Alabama can hold up Georgia's old D-line the way they did, with arguably like some of the best D-line players in the country, I just don't see a path for Cincy at all.
Well, I appreciate the call.
Yeah. All right.
Have a good night.
Appreciate that. Good night.
All right, we will take one more call here at the Voice of College Football. I actually went through the recruiting rankings, and I was going to produce a video, and I should because I didn't want to waste all that time, but there it is. So I should do that sometime tomorrow. We're also going to have Tony Gerdeman on here from Buckeye Scoop to break down the Buckeyes and Utah. And we also had a writer from 247 Sports on the Utah platform to break down Utah. And so that content has been posted on our Ohio State channel. So I was going through this, and I hope you caught the video. Not many people did, I don't think, where I was comparing the 8-team, 12-team, and 16-team playoffs and what it would look like this particular season. And so we posted that a few days ago. But Cincinnati is by far the least talented team that's played in the college football playoffs. It's not even close. The least talented teams up until this season would have been the Washington team in 2016, which was roughly a number 24 team talent ranking, and Michigan State from 2015 was in that range as well. Those are the lowest ranked talent teams that have ever played in the college football playoff, and Cincinnati is nowhere close to that. Now, does that mean everything? No. But it does mean something. It means quite a bit. All right. So welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, I guess I made it again, Mark. Hey, it's Dustin Miller.
Hey, Dustin. What's going on?
I didn't think I was going to make it on, but I was just holding. Hey, well, I guess everybody's here. You know, we're talking about people opting out. Now, I'll say one thing real quick. I listened to me on your channel the other day, and I sound like I'm like 12 years old, but
well, it's better to sound like you're 12 years old than sound like you're 92 years old.
I'm gonna be 40 here in a couple months. But anyway, so I was in the military, man. We sold out. I was an infantryman. I was a team leader in combat. We sold out. You know, we were in it for each other. And I've heard many coaches, I've heard many players talk in college and NFL, like, this is combat. We're going to combat together. And I'll pick this with what's going on in college football right now. And I don't know what's been said in the locker room, but I'm tired of the people opting out. And I understand why. You know, you got a big NFL career. You like Olave right here. You know, he's opting out. But man, it's the Rose Bowl. It's the Rose Bowl. You know, you're in the locker room. I've been in there. Been in the real stuff. You know, real combat. You know, you sell out for your guys, and that's what it's about. If you're playing. If it's a team, if you're a team and you're selling out and you're playing for your team, then you need to play. You need to step up and play. I mean, there's some garbage games out there, whatnot. I didn't hear about it, but I know we talked the other night about it. It'll get remedied soon, but just not soon enough, and we're still here talking about it. But I just like I want to see the best play the best. If we're not going to do that, if we're not going to have, you know, if our best players are sitting out on bowl games that don't mean anything, quotation marks, then how about we? This is probably sounds stupid. How about we let these guys that are coming in out of high school, let them play in the bowl game. Let's see what's going on for the year coming up. That's basically like a scrimmage.
Well, the backups are already playing, so why would we bypass the backups to let high school players play. Wouldn't that be
Yeah,
insulting to the backups that they've been waiting all this time to play?
Yes, definitely. And it is another thing too. I mean, that's the other part of it. We do get to see the backups. We do get to see, possibly the future, the young guys coming up, and playing and practicing. They get, that extra month to practice and show what they got to the coaches. So we get that. But I'm talking about games like the Rose Bowl, the big game.
So, Dustin, I appreciate and I agree with everything that you're saying, but I'll make a few distinctions. First and foremost, thank you for your service. Secondly, what you were involved in, first of all, you had no choice. So these guys have a choice. They are free to leave and do whatever they want. You didn't have that option. Number two, what you were doing was a million times, and I'm probably understating it, a million times more important than what they're doing. Their role in society is a drop in the ocean of value compared to what you're doing. They are providing entertainment for people. You are protecting our country and our freedoms and our liberties and our own society. So their importance compared to your importance is minuscule. It's next to nothing.
I appreciate it. I didn't mean to get into all that. I was just saying that I've heard teams, I've heard players talk about, like, I'd go to combat with these guys, and if you're going to make that statement, then let's and play.
Exactly. That's ridiculous. Exactly. I'm right there with you. And even before all this came up this season, we were seeing situations with all the racial unrest and other things going on in society where I'm seeing players, whether that be in the NFL or at the college ranks, throwing their so-called brothers, in quotes, and their brotherhood, their family, throwing them under the bus on social media and calling them out and saying, you're not this and you're not that. And I'm thinking, you morons are calling each other your brothers, that you have a brotherhood. Well, if I have a problem with my brother, my actual brother, do I go out on Twitter and make him look bad and call him out? No. I call him on the phone and I have a private conversation with him because, like a real man, and I deal with it directly. I don't try to embarrass him in public, and I don't, like a coward, talk about him in front of millions of people out on social media to try to make myself look better. That's not how a man handles a situation or a conflict with somebody in a locker room. They deal with it directly in private. So that's one issue I have with these guys, and the way they deal with issues is they deal with it in a very cowardly way, and in a way in which doesn't give much respect or prove what they call is their brotherhood. So that's a bit ridiculous. And as it applies to this, you're right. If I was playing college football, depending on how I felt about particular players in that locker room, I would feel obviously very close to some of them and not so much to others. But I played on teams. Now I understand the commitment of the teams that I played for in high school and elsewhere wasn't anywhere close to the commitment and the amount of work and effort that they put into playing collegiate football. But still, I didn't look at those guys and think, these are my brothers. We're a family. I just felt as though, we play on this team together. And so I think all of that is a bit overstated, but that's my own opinion.
I'd like to say one thing there. Wait, take a breath there. At beginning of the season, Michigan was not getting really any respect, and much deserved. We didn't deserve any respect. But from what I saw on my side, I know one of my cousin, he is head of NCOIS, or not NCOIS. He's at cadre at University of Michigan. He actually took Jim Harbaugh up on Blackhawk helicopter a couple times. He's told me some things here and there, and before the season, I called out and said we're going to go 11-1, and I thought we'd stumble against like Indiana because they always play us really hard. So I really go seems like overtime every time we play. But anyway, it seems like before the season started with Michigan, I saw and what I heard from the people I know is that this was a team. You know, like the old Bo Schembechler days, the team. And at the end of the year, when it came out, when we won the Big Ten championships, and you saw Aiden and Hassan and Blake, all of them, every single one of them. You talk to any single one of them. I mean, they're a team. They're fully invested. Like, if they didn't make the playoffs, I fully believe they would still play, every single one of them, because these guys have sold out. They love Jim Harbaugh and the coaching staff that we brought in. So I just want to bring back that part of college football, and I love that part of college football. That's what I love college football for. These guys are invested as the team, and it's on the coaches to make it a team. Make every single one of you guys in that locker room a team. And when you get a team to play as a team, you get the best. And I see, like, we're going to play Georgia, and we're the underdogs. I get it. We love it. We'll take it. But I don't think Georgia understands, and I don't think most college players probably don't understand what a team really looks like right now in this day and age. And I just really love what Jim Harbaugh did this year, and not just Jim Harbaugh, because it wasn't just him. It was the whole coaching staff and period brought these guys together as a team. So.
Well, I think everything that you just stated is valid, and it's your perspective, and it's based on what your observation of Michigan's team this year and what Jim Harbaugh has built and what he has had to say and what the other players have had to say. The only thing I will say in response to that is I don't think we should overvalue when we're talking about how any particular team is truly committed to each other and self-sacrificing for each other and all of those good marks of a team. I don't think we should connect that to a record, meaning if Michigan was 4-8 right now, obviously none of us would be talking about Michigan football. We would not in any way give them any accolades or recognition for what they accomplished this year, because in our eyes, they didn't accomplish anything. They were 4-8, but within that locker room, they could be just as close to each other. They could be just as committed. They could be just as building in just as meaningful a way, lifelong friendships, and all those things could still be happening just as much as they are happening now, but they're just losing football games. There could be all sorts of teams across the nation that have 3-9 and 5-7 records that within that locker room, the value of their relationships is just as strong and just as valuable as what's going on in Michigan or any other team that's winning. So that's just one point I would make. The other is, a lot's been made of the Michigan story because we see the obvious progression as a football team going from a team that was 2-4 last year to a college football playoff team as opposed to Georgia. But I don't want to discount what's going on in Georgia because, again, their team might be just as close as Michigan's team. I don't know. I'm not there. But they're not given that kind of credit because they're accomplishing what they were expected to accomplish.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree totally. I am not trying to take away anything from any team out there, Alabama, Georgia, who we got, but Virginia Tech, I don't care every team out there. I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody out there. It's just, I live in Michigan now. Finally, I've been all over the
Sure, that's all you care about.
Years, but
so that's what you're going to
I love Michigan.
to.
I grew up on Michigan, and I've got friends that work there. I know some presidents. They're not presidents. But anyway, whatever. The big guys, the big kahunas, I got season tickets because of them, or because of one of them. But I just got this, I got texts and calls from old friends. I've had season tickets even while I was in the military for 12 years, and I couldn't make it to any game anyway. I held on to them because I know how hard they are to get. I get little insider info here and there. It's nothing major, but there was just something. And I knew when Michael Hart came back and Ronald Bellamy came back. I don't know if many people remember Bellamy. I do, as a kid. Yeah, that dude was great. Number 15. This is what it is. I know what it takes to be a team, a real team. And I've heard it so many times, especially like in the NFL. And I've heard it in college too. We go to war with these guys, and us military guys kind of like, you need to shut up.
Yeah, it's a stupid thing to say. It really is. And if they want to use that, and so I don't have, in my eyes, I don't have the place to criticize them to the level that you do because of what you've experienced and because of what you've faced. You have a place to make that statement. I kind of reserve that statement, and I will make that from time to time and say, well, you really don't have a place to make that unless we're all understanding, okay, within a sports context, and let's all understand that within a sports context, they're in battle, they're soldiers, whatever they want to say, but let's all understand this is within a sports context. They're all walking off the field, they're all leaving the game, they're all safe, everybody's safe and secure. The worst that's going to happen is, and it's really bad, but somebody might break a leg or somebody might get hurt even worse than that. We all understand that the same thing could happen to any of us driving down the street tomorrow. So it's not, it's ridiculous to even put it in those terms. But if they're going to go ahead and do that, they have every right for freedom of speech to be able to put it in those terms. But I hope people that are listening, and I hope them themselves understand what they're stating, that it's very much within a sports context.
Yeah, I think a lot of them probably do. They're kids. I don't hold it against them. I'm not screaming my head off like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You've never been to combat. I'm not like that. And the guys that I've served with, we're not like that. We're humble professionals, man. We don't really care. I mean, yes, it's great to hear you say thank you for your service, but that's not why I joined the military, and that's not why 99% of the people who join the military join the military. We're not there to get thank you, whatever. It's just what it is, and I look at it from the outside when I look at like my sports. When I was in Iraq in 05, 06, and I come home and Michigan's, undefeated. We beat. I got to watch Michigan beat Notre Dame in a little tiny hut with a large screen TV with a whole bunch of Notre Dame military fans, and I was like one or two Michigan fans. Beat them, and I come home. We're undefeated. It's 2006, 2007. And Michigan's 2, Ohio State's 1, and we're going into the game. That's when I came home. And it was like, oh, man, this is great. Like, what's going on? My lieutenant, my XO, he was a big Ohio State fan, and I painted his truck, Michigan magnets and everything, and spray painted his parking spot because he's lieutenant or XO. He gets a special parking spot. So I did all that to him, and we ended up losing. Bo Schembechler with pass rates for the game, and it was one of the games. It was one hell of a game, but yeah, no, I don't get it. I'm not gonna hold it against these kids. saying we're going to go to combat together. Because it really, it's not really combat, obviously, but you guys are going out there in the trenches. You are depending on one another, and that's what combat is. I mean, I depended on my guys on the left and the right of me, and my team, the guys that I controlled in combat, to get things done. But I can see how it fits in a football or any team sport, really. And I've coached college, or not college. I wish I coached college football. I've coached some youth football in my time for about 4 or 5 years, and I try to instill that into everybody I've ever met. Just
Yep. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for the call.
Team,
we appreciate it. Thanks for calling. You can call back anytime. And
yeah, it's getting late.
Thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll get that email over to you probably Monday.
Great. Looking forward to it. Thanks,
All
Dustin.
right, man, take care.
Enjoy the games.
You too.
I believe this is the last comment I'm going to address tonight. So, Chris, these guys ought to be suspended if they're not willing to play a game that they're eligible for. How do you suspend a player who quit? So you got a football team, and let's say you have 4 players that announce before you're about to play this bowl game a couple weeks before, we are opting out of this game. We're done. We're no longer on the team. We're done. Thank you. We're preparing for the NFL draft. How do you suspend players that are no longer part of the organization? They've already quit. That's like, how do you fire someone who's already quit or resigned? They're done. They're out. You cannot suspend them. All right. All right, everyone. So tomorrow, I will have my eyes on North Carolina, South Carolina. Then we've got Tennessee, Purdue. I think that's going to be a good game. Then we've got the Peach Bowl, Pitt and Michigan State, minus Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker. And then the late night game is Wisconsin and Arizona State. I will be back here after all those games. And if anything happens during the day, of course, I will jump on and produce some videos as well right here at the Voice of College Football. So please be looking out for new content. And let's get that subscriber base cranked up. And on the USC channel, please subscribe over there as well. Appreciate everybody being here. We will see you late night on Thursday night after Wisconsin, Arizona State. Have a good bowl day on Thursday.